My wife cheated on me with my business partner, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to run off with him, and now she's claiming half the property worth over $1 million. Help! I don't know how to fight this betrayal and legal nightmare. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this, but here I am. The moment I found out my wife, Lisa, had been cheating on me with my business partner, Mark, everything I thought I knew about my life shattered in an instant. It was like some sick, twisted plot twist I couldn't believe was real. I mean, I always knew Lisa was a bit bitchy and manipulative, but I never thought she'd go this far, cheating, stealing, lying straight to my face. It all started about 2 months ago. Things seemed off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Lisa was more irritable than usual, snapping at me over small things, canceling plans last minute, and avoiding any real conversations about where she was or who she was with. She'd come home late, smelling different, sometimes with lipstick on her collar. At first, I thought she was stressed out, from work or maybe just tired. But then I noticed her phone always locked, and she'd hide it when I walked into the room. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. One night I was working late at the office, like I often do when I decided to check her phone. I know, that's invasive, but I felt I had to. I didn't want to believe she was cheating, but I needed proof. I slipped my phone out of my pocket and unlocked her iPad she left on the kitchen counter. That's when I saw the messages, flirty texts, suggestive photos, all between her and Mark, my business partner, the guy I trusted with everything. They'd been sneaking around for months, probably longer. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was how brazen she was about it. They'd even planned to meet up that very weekend, according to their messages. I felt my stomach turn to ice. My head spun. I scrolled faster, trying to process what I was reading. Explicit conversations, plans to go away together, her promising to leave me. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was cheating on me with the guy I'd trusted as a partner in both business and life. And then there was the money. I looked into our joint account 2 days before I found the messages. Suddenly, I noticed a withdrawal of $250, $0 gone. I asked Lisa about it, but she brushed me off, claimed it was business expenses she'd been handling. But I knew better. I knew she'd stolen that money to run off with Mark. I'd been so busy building my company, working late nights, trying to give her everything she wanted, luxury trips, a fancy house, the best of everything, and all the while she was planning her escape with my partner. What made it even worse was her attitude when I confronted her. I called her out, told her I'd seen the messages, and asked her what the hell was going on. Her response: she told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend she was talking to about work. She looked me straight in the eye and lied, flat out lied. Said she loved me, that I was imagining things, that I was being insecure. But I knew better. I saw the proof with my own eyes. The shock was overwhelming. It hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool. All those years of trust, all the hard work I put into our marriage and our business, just crumbling in seconds. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie so easily? And Mark, how could he betray me like that, my partner, my friend? It was like some sick game I didn't even know I was part of. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to process everything. I was angry, furious even, at Lisa, at Mark, at myself for not seeing it coming. But beneath that anger was a deep sadness. I'd loved her. I'd fought for us, built a life I thought was secure. And now I was looking at a future that was wrecked, possibly shattered forever. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was that this betrayal wasn't going to end quietly. I was already planning my next move. After I found out about Lisa and Mark, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the moments I'd missed, signs I ignored, little things that now screamed betrayal. I realized I had to act fast. The first thing I did was dig into our bank accounts. I needed to confirm exactly how much she'd taken, how much she'd spent, and where the money was going. That's when I saw the withdrawal of $250, $0. It was gone, just like that. I couldn't believe she'd steal that much from us, from the life we'd built together. I called my attorney the next morning. I needed to understand my legal options. I was furious, but I knew I had to stay calm and strategic. The lawyer explained that I could potentially freeze the accounts, start a legal process for the stolen money, and fight for custody of the house and our assets. But the real shock came when I realized that Lisa was already claiming half of everything. She was filing for divorce and demanding half of the property, which was valued at over $1 million. She was spinning this story that I was an abusive, neglectful husband. Completely false, but she was good at lying. She's always been bitchy, manipulative, and she knows how to play the victim. In the days that followed, I started gathering evidence. I printed out her texts with Mark, saved screenshots, and looked into her financial transactions. I also hired a private investigator. I wanted to know where she was going, who she was meeting, and how far she was willing to go. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like she was the victim. She'd call me paranoid and accusatory, claiming I was just jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I saw her phone with her lying face on, and I wasn't about to let her spin her web of lies unchallenged. The most shocking thing was her reaction when I confronted her face to face. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the lies, and her response. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're overreacting. Mark and I are just friends. We're not doing anything wrong." I wanted to scream. She gaslighted me like it was nothing. She kept insisting I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything because I was insecure. But I wasn't stupid. I saw the truth in her eyes. It was like she was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to convince me. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. She was a master at lying and manipulating, and I had to protect myself. I started documenting everything: texts, bank statements, her movements. I also reached out to a divorce attorney just to get an idea of the legal landscape. The more I dug, the angrier I got. How could she do this? How could she betray me, steal from us, and then lie to my face? It felt like my entire world was collapsing, and I was just standing there trying to hold it together. My biggest fear was losing everything: my business, my house, my savings. And Lisa was already making demands, claiming she deserved half of everything because she was married to me for years. She's always been bitchy, entitled, and she knows how to play the victim when it suits her. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I decided I needed to come up with a plan, not just to get my money back, but to protect myself from her next move. I knew she'd try to spin this into a story that I was the bad guy, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. One thing I learned from all this is that you can't trust people blindly, even those you're married to, especially not when money and betrayal are involved. I also realized that sometimes the only way to fight back is with facts, evidence, and a clear head. I had to stay calm, even when I felt like breaking down, because I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a long, messy battle I wasn't prepared for. But I was determined to come out on top, no matter what. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings, private investigators, and sleepless nights. I threw myself into gathering every shred of evidence I could find. Lisa's lies were so blatant now, I couldn't believe I'd ever trusted her. She was running around, still pretending to be the innocent wife, but I had the proof of her affair, her theft, and her manipulations. The investigator confirmed she'd been staying at a hotel with Mark, and I had security footage to back that up. Seeing her in those videos, smiling with Mark at the bar, made me feel sick. All those years I thought I knew her. Turns out she was just a master of deception. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, calling me paranoid and crazy whenever I confronted her. She'd lie about everything: about the affair, about the money, about her plans. She insisted she was innocent, that Mark was just a business associate, even though I had everything on her phone. She's good at twisting stories, making herself look like the victim, and turning everyone against me. She's always been bitchy, manipulative, and she knew how to keep people guessing. That's how she got away with so much for so long, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew the truth, and I was going to fight for it. One night I sat her down for what I knew would be the final confrontation. I told her I had all the evidence, that I was going to take her to court, and that she'd been caught red-handed. Her reaction: she scoffed, rolled her eyes, and then suddenly started crying, Fake tears, I knew. She played the victim so well, blaming me for everything, saying I was abusive and controlling. She even claimed I was having an affair myself, which was impossible because I'd been too busy trying to fix what she broke. Still, she's good at lying. She's a pro at turning things around and making herself look innocent. The thing that really hit me hard was the money. I couldn't believe she stole $250,000 from our joint account. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything to get away, including running off with Mark, leaving me with nothing. I had to think quickly. I filed for an emergency injunction to freeze the accounts and prevent her from moving any more money out of our joint funds. I also started the legal process for divorce, knowing full well she'd claim half of everything: our house, our savings, even my business. I was angry, yes, but mostly I felt betrayed. I'd built everything for us, my business, my life, and she just took it all for granted. Her lies, her manipulations, her outright theft, it all added up to one thing: she was willing to destroy everything to be with Mark. And I was left to pick up the pieces, feeling like I'd been sucker punched by the woman I loved. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming. How did I miss the signs? But deep down, I knew I'd been blind because I wanted to believe in her so badly. The hardest part was knowing she'd probably try to spin this into some kind of sob story to play the victim. She's always been good at manipulating people, and I knew she'd try to turn friends, family, even the courts against me. That's why I started documenting everything, every conversation, every lie, every sneaky move she made. I wasn't going to let her paint me as the bad guy, not after everything I'd done for her. I had to protect my reputation, my business, and my future. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to trust someone so completely. I thought love was enough, but I learned the hard way that money, betrayal, and lies can destroy everything if you're not careful. I still don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm not giving up. I'm going to fight for what's mine, for the truth, and for the chance to rebuild. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the most unexpected betrayals come from the people you trust the most. And when that happens, you've got no choice but to stand tall and fight back. The legal process dragged on longer than I expected, and every day felt like walking through a minefield. Lisa's lawyer kept claiming she was entitled to half the property, citing marital contributions, even though I knew she hadn't contributed anything to the business except for her lies and theft. Meanwhile, I was fighting to get the accounts unfrozen and recover the stolen $250, $0. I hired a forensic accountant to trace the money. It turned out she'd already transferred some of it offshore, probably to hide it from the courts and me. Knowing that made my blood boil. She was willing to burn everything down just to run away with Mark. I also started to get really fed up with how Lisa was playing the victim. She'd show up at court claiming she was abused, neglected, and that I was controlling. She made it seem like she was the one suffering, even though I had all the proof of her affair and theft. It was disgusting. She's always been bitchy and manipulative, but now she was pushing it to a new level. She's good at twisting stories and convincing people she's the wronged wife. That's why I kept detailed records, texts, emails, financial statements, even her social media posts. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me or anyone else. One night I got a call from the investigator. Turns out Lisa had a secret stash of cash hidden in her sister's house, which she'd been using for months to fund her escape plans. That was the last straw. I knew I had to act fast. I filed for a court order to seize her assets and get a judge to review her financial disclosures. I also contacted the bank to freeze any account she might have set up in her name alone. She was trying to hide everything, but I had enough evidence now to put her on the defensive. Meanwhile, I was feeling a mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How could she betray me like this? I'd trusted her with everything: my money, my business, my heart, and she'd thrown it all away for Mark. Every time I thought about it, I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach. I'd built a life for us, and she just destroyed it in a matter of months. She's always been bitchy and entitled, but this was on a different level. I couldn't believe she'd be so cold, so calculated, to steal that much money and lie about everything. I also started talking to friends and family about what was happening. I needed support, but I also needed to be careful about what I said. Lisa was already spinning her story, telling everyone I was abusive or crazy, just to make herself look innocent. I knew I couldn't let her manipulate people anymore. I had to be the one to tell the truth, even if it hurt. I told my brother everything, and he was furious. He told me to focus on the legal side and to make sure I protected myself and my assets. This whole mess opened my eyes to how dangerous someone's true character can be when money and betrayal are involved. I realized that trust is fragile, and that people like Lisa will do anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying everything in their path. I also learned that fighting for what's right isn't easy, and that sometimes you have to be ruthless to protect yourself. I'm not the kind of guy to give up, though. I've been through too much to just walk away now. I'm determined to see this through, to get justice and to rebuild what's left of my life. The hardest part is knowing she's out there, probably laughing at how she's gotten away with it for now. But I'm not done yet. I will fight this to the very end, because I know the truth and I know I deserve better. I've been betrayed in ways I never thought possible, but I refuse to let her win. The truth will come out, and I'll make sure of it. The months that followed were the most draining of my life. Every morning I woke up feeling like I was walking into a battlefield. Lisa's lies kept coming, trying to paint her as the victim, saying I was the one who was controlling or abusive. But I had the evidence now: texts, bank statements, the investigation reports. I knew she was lying, and I was determined to expose her. The court hearings were brutal. She showed up with her bitchy attitude, trying to manipulate the judge, claiming she deserved half the property because she helped me build the business. That was a joke. She contributed nothing but lies and theft. I remember sitting in that courtroom, feeling like I was drowning in a sea of her bullshit. She was crying fake tears, clutching her purse, trying to look innocent. She claimed I was emotionally abusive, which made me laugh bitterly. I knew her game now. She's always been good at playing the victim, twisting everything to her advantage. But I had the facts. I had everything documented, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. One of the biggest blows was discovering she'd hidden more money in her sister's name. I found bank accounts she'd set up without my knowledge, transferring thousands of dollars in small increments. I had my lawyer send a subpoena, and the bank froze everything. That was a major victory, but I knew she'd try to find other ways around it. She was resourceful and ruthless when it came to protecting her lies. Meanwhile, I was trying to stay sane, holding on to the hope that justice would prevail. I also learned that she'd been trying to contact Mark behind my back, even after I'd confronted her. She sent him messages, trying to keep the affair alive, even while she was claiming to be innocent. That made me angrier than ever. I couldn't believe she was so reckless, so willing to throw everything away for some cheap thrill. It's like she didn't care about the damage she was doing to us, to our lives, just to satisfy her own selfish desires. Throughout all this, I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal. I trusted her with everything: my business, my life, my heart, and she used that trust to stab me in the back. Every day I wondered how I didn't see it coming, how I was so blind to her true nature. But I also knew I had to stay focused. I had to keep fighting, not just for the money, but for my dignity. I refused to be the victim of her manipulations any longer. The emotional toll was immense. I'd go from feeling furious to feeling hopeless, then back again. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking, why did I let it get this far? But then I'd remind myself that I did everything I could. I built a life, a business, a future. And she, in her bitchy, entitled way, decided to destroy it all. That realization hit hard, but I also knew I wasn't going to let her win. I was determined to see this through to the end, no matter how long it took. In the end, I learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting yourself. I learned that some people will do anything for money, even if it means lying, cheating, and stealing from the people they're supposed to love. I also learned that standing up for yourself, even when it feels like the world is against you, is the only way to survive. I still have a long road ahead, but I'm not giving up. I'll fight for what's right, and I'll come out stronger on the other side. Because at the end of the day, I know the truth, and that's what matters most. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare has changed me forever. I used to be trusting, maybe too much so. I believed in love, in partnership, in building a future together. But betrayal, like this, by someone you loved and trusted with everything, shakes you to your core. It's a brutal lesson that not everyone is who they seem to be, and some people will do anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying everything good you've built. The legal battles drained me emotionally and financially. I fought hard, poured every ounce of effort into proving her lies, recovering the stolen money, and protecting what was left of my life. I pushed through the anger, the heartbreak, the humiliation. I learned that I had to be relentless, that sometimes you need to be a little ruthless to get justice. The truth finally came out in court, and Lisa's manipulations were exposed for what they really were: desperate attempts to cling to a life she'd already betrayed. In the end, I managed to get most of the stolen money back, and I retained full control of my property. Lisa's claims to half the estate were, and she was ordered to pay back some of what she stole. The divorce was finalized, and I moved out of the house we once shared, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I've come to accept that I can't change what happened, but I can choose how I move forward. What I've learned from all this is invaluable. Trust has to be earned, not given blindly. People's true colors come out when money and power are involved. And sometimes the only way to survive betrayal is to fight back with everything you've got, legally, emotionally, and mentally. I've also learned to value myself more, to rebuild my confidence and my sense of worth after being so thoroughly betrayed. Today, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. It's not perfect and it's not easy, but I know I'm stronger for having survived this. I still carry the scars of betrayal, but I refuse to let them define me. I hope anyone reading this who's been betrayed can take away that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. Stand tall, fight for the truth, and never let anyone take more from you than you're willing to give. Because at the end of the day, the only person you can truly rely on is yourself, and sometimes that's enough to start over.